In my video and PowerPoint presentation, I will demonstrate how I mastered the two competencies, reading fluency and critical thinking, that we reviewed in our junior seminar class known as My Academic Career. These two competencies are 2 out of the 6 that are mastered by successful students at Mercy College. I am looking back at 2 assignments that I produced when I was in my second year at Westchester Community College. First, I'm going to look at reading fluency, with a paper that I submitted as an assignment in my English literature class, and how I explained possible implications of the text beyond its explicit message. The paper was written to examine the use of literary elements in a short story. I read Everyday Use by Alice Walker and wrote a paper about the literary elements she used in the short story. Alice Walker used 2 literary elements, irony being one of them, in this short story. Irony is defined as an element in which words are used in such a way that their intent meaning is different from their actual meaning of the words. It is also the difference between surface meaning and underlying meaning. When I read Everyday Use, I noticed that Alice Walker created a situation in the story that had implications beyond the explicit message, and that is how she conveyed irony in the story. The story was about a poor black family in the South who lived on a farm that had been in their family since the Civil War. They used farm tools and household items that had been in their family for generations. Their family consisted of a mother and 2 daughters. One daughter stayed on the farm and the other traveled to the city. The older daughter from the city visits and comments on how old-fashioned everything is, and wants her mother's quilt not to use but to put on display. Alice Walker uses the symbolism of the quilt to make the reader understand that the family's belongings are not artwork but part of their day-to-day lives. For a reader to understand the implications of the story, you have to understand beyond the explicit message of the story. Here is a paragraph from the written assignment that illustrates the competency of reading fluency. Alice Walker uses irony many times in this story. The title of the story is Everyday Use. In other meanings besides the reference to Mama's quilt in Everyday Use, the title can also refer to the family's heritage. Mama and Maggie make everyday use of their traditions that are part of their heritage. For example, they are still making butter in the butter churn that had been made long ago by family members who are now dead. It is ironic that heritage can be used every day. There is also the irony of Dee trying to find her heritage in African culture. She is a smart girl, but she has overlooked the rich heritage that is right in front of her when she visits Mama. Dee has taken her time to come home and connect with her family. I never knew how lovely these benches are. You can really feel the rum prints, she says after sitting at the dinner table. Dee tried to put Maggie down when she leaves by saying, "You ought to try to make something of yourself. That's like saying you're nothing right now." The irony is that Maggie knows her own heritage better than Dee does. When Dee says at the end of the story that Mama and Maggie don't understand their heritage, the author uses irony because it is clear that Maggie has understood it perfectly. The second competency I will be looking at in my presentation is critical thinking. I will discuss a paper that I wrote in a class called Marriage and the Family to demonstrate how I evaluated the viewpoints or assumptions of others. This was a sociology class examining family issues like marriage and dating was the topic I covered. The title of this paper is Finding a Date in the 21st Century. This was an analysis of a topic in sociology using symbolic interaction theory. In the paper, I evaluated the viewpoints and assumptions of others and my own viewpoint. I synthesized information from 8 sources. I drew logical conclusions and created a specific position, taking into account the complexities. Online dating was very big in the 1990s, when the internet became available. There were websites like Match.com that used programs to match people. Many of these users only spoke to each other online, and it started a trend that has evolved to this day. A decade later, cell phone apps made it even easier to meet people. The theme of my paper was the meaning of dating has changed to cover all of these changes. I read 3 articles from the New York Times, 1 journal article from a sociology journal to research information for this assignment. I also used the class notes and course textbook information about the theory of symbolic interaction. To write this paper, I evaluated the viewpoints of several writers and my own viewpoints. For example, one New York Times article that I used was entitled, "On One App, Looks Are Everything." The article was written in 2013 when Tinder was first introduced. The writer of the article was critical of Tinder and had many negative things to say about it. The article mainly focused on how superficial and how shallow people who use these apps are. The title of the article even tells the reader before reading it that there may be a negative opinion of the app. I read this article for information about Tinder, and I did not agree with the writer's viewpoint. I had to evaluate her opinion throughout the writing of my paper. I assumed that the writer might be an older person who was skeptical of Tinder. I knew that as a younger person, I was more familiar with the technology and more accepting. There were a few personal stories in the article that I used in the paper. I had synthesized this information and created a specific position that took into account the complexities of the issue. Here is the paragraph on the paper in which I synthesized the information from the article entitled On One App, Looks Are Everything. The article One App, Looks Are Everything was published on April 24th, 2013 in the New York Times and explains the new app Tinder and how users can use it in ways to meet new people. Most people have smartphones which are able to connect to the internet. Smartphones are able to run programs that are similar to websites. These programs are called apps. Tinder was created by Sean Rad and Justin Mateen. Is a phone app where the users view a picture submitted to the site by a prospect. The user can love or hate the other person's picture by swiping in a certain direction when it pops up on the screen. The author of the article comments that technology has hit a new level of shallow. This was said because decisions are made on looks alone and it has become a quick hookup site. Tinder does not require a profile to fill out. However, you might need a Facebook account because if 2 people like each other's pictures, they can start chatting with each other on Facebook. Jesse Morris, a user, says he prefers Tinder because bars don't attract everyone, and in a bar, all best-looking girls are under a magnifying glass for every guy. I'm also showing the reference page from my paper to show my sources. believe that the two papers are great examples of my mastery of these two competencies. These competencies are what a Mercy College junior like myself must master in order to show that we are ready to take the next step in our careers.